All right. It's time.
It's time.
For more nuns.
Hell
with
yeah.
Guns?
It's been a far too long away.
Operation Bad Habit is a go.
It's been a slow pace of recording this as I have been sick to my stomach still, but...
You don't have to justify yourself to people.
Yeah, but like, I'm glad to be back in it, and, you know, hopefully y'all bear with us if it takes a little bit of a slower pace than previous.
Yeah. Marta was standing next to an open cask. She was holding a wooden ladle, looking thoughtful.
Ah, Hedwig. Finished upstairs already?
Yes, I am. I felt it'd be nice to get to know everyone's jobs a little bit better.
Smart girl. Flora could learn a thing or two from you. I heard that.
Flora's voice echoed from deep within the rows of barrels.
Good. I have her check inventory sometimes. Especially if she's been acting up.
I see. The barrel open in front of Marta smelled absolutely putrid. Nonetheless, she dipped her ladle into the dark liquid and raised it to her lips, sipping gently and furrowing her brow thoughtfully. Is it supposed to smell like that?
Truth be told, I haven't a clue. This is a slightly different kind of wine than I'm used to.
I must confess that I did not know there were different kinds.
It's sherry. Adela pestered me to try making it the moment she arrived at the abbey.
Goodness, she must be very particular.
She has expensive taste, yes. We had to get a fancy new distiller set up in the workshop just to try making it.
Ooh, sherry. Sounds pretty good right about now. The abbey could afford that? I was just talking to Eustace about her acquisition budget and...
I try not to think about money most of the time, to tell you the truth. But I've heard the Superior has access to more than you'd expect.
Oh, really? How did she come into that wealth?
Definitely not political favors related to a plot against the King of England.
You sure? You sure? Because maybe it seems like maybe the Mother Superior was harboring someone who was known to be helping to murder the King of England. They got murdered, and now she's worried that someone is onto the plot, and that's what we're actually trying to uncover for her, but she doesn't want us to say that part? Am I wrong? I feel like... Am I wrong? I feel like this is the right direction to be thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly the Superior has another motive for making us do this. Even if she does genuinely want to catch the killer, if that was her own goal, she wouldn't have made as much of a fuss about it as she did, right?
Perhaps.
If she indeed knew who she was taking in, and that person is now dead, then it's not simply a matter of finding who the culprit was so the right man, so an innocent man doesn't have to die. It's finding out where the leak in their conspiracy is.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different kind of thing.
I'm really curious.
And also would give her a reason to need to use Hedwig, but keep her at arm's distance.
Yeah. I'm curious what we'll find when we meet the guy.
Yeah.
Because we still haven't gotten to that, but I wonder, we might...
Foreman, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we might get some clues at that time.
I suppose I wouldn't really know what to expect. Isn't that wrong, though?
If it is true, it would certainly mean this abbey is stuck in a uniquely unfortunate position of having a lot of charity to give and no one to give it to. I'd urge you to quell any Cistercian tendencies. I'm not sure the church could withstand another order fracturing.
You want to help me out with this one?
Yeah, where's my phone?
Cistercian.
I can't remember if that's another order of monks or what.
Yeah.
I've heard that word before. Cistercian. Cistercians, they are indeed another order of monks. They branched off from the Benedictines. They're also known as the Bernardines after Saint Bernard.
So when did they branch off?
They branched off in 1098.
Okay.
It was a return to literal observance of the Benedictine rule.
Okay. So she's trying to be hey, stop taking things so literally.
Yeah, because the Benedictines had done like what you see here, where monks and nuns followed the spirit of the rule,
but not the
necessarily the nitty-gritty, because you got to get on with your life and do your stuff.
Right, whereas Hedwig, because she's been in such a... It's weird to call it privileged, but in this case it is a privileged position where she could afford to observe all of those strictly to the letter. So specifically Marta here is saying, don't worry if this is slightly bending the thing. That's, you gotta...
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I would not have gotten that subtlety unless we had looked it up. Marta took another whiff of the unfinished wine in her spoon. She wrinkled her nose and emptied the spoon back into the barrel.
Anyhow, there's little use in speculating on speculations. We have a distiller, and all I need to worry about is making sure my sherry isn't a disaster. Would you be a dear and find Adela? I need her to tell me if I'm on the right track with this.
Of course. Where would she be this time of day?
She does this and that, so I haven't a clue to tell you the truth.
Was Adela one of the ones that didn't have a clearly defined role?
Maybe.
It was a couple of episodes ago when we laid out everyone. I should make just like a list of everyone and their roles and what we know about what they're doing.
Yeah, we need to get the fucking wiki going we did
the Notion
for
thing going. Yeah. Just start taking down notes.
I'm just too old to be given the runaround.
I understand. I'll find her for you. I bowed my head and left the way that I'd come. It turned out I didn't have to go very far. After jogging back up the stairs to the cloister, I decided to check the gardens, where I found Adela and Darcy tending to a row of vegetables.
Hedwig, hello. Hiya.
Hello. Marta actually asked me to find you, Adela.
Is she meddling with the sherry again? She is going to ruin it, I swear.
Oh, be careful. Ego autem dico vobis non jurare omnino nece per caelo.
I don't know that one.
Neither do I.
Clearly, I should have stuck with Latin for longer.
Yeah, I think that's the real I think the real takeaway is study Latin in high school and give up on any other languages. That will leave you in a position when you get older where you feel very satisfied and well-rounded.
Sherry is very important and delicate. For sherry, I will swear.
Fair enough.
Goodbye, my friends. I will speak to you again once I have walloped some sense into Sister Marta.
With
words, Hedwig, do not worry. The old word wallop. That is correct. I would never hit anyone, although over sherry.
No, that's not funny.
It is a little funny. Because really, I would not. And that's what makes it funny to say you would. I get it. Funny is when you say a thing that's false.
I think maybe there's something that tone has to do with it, and also the general situation you're in. I think there's more to it than that. Either way, I suppose we have very different senses of humor. Adela gave a little approving nod to Darcy and then turned to leave.
Would you mind helping me finish what she was helping me with?
Of course. What can I do?
Pick the rest of these carrots with me and put them in the box.
She pointed at a wooden crate half filled with plump, reddish vegetables. All right then, do I just,
You just gotta push them down and yank them out like this.
Darcy flopped to her knees and gripped a clump of green stems that were poking up out of the soil. She pointed at a little purple mound poking up out of the dirt.
Watch this.
She pressed the carrot into the earth and then pulled it out of the ground with remarkable ease, then tossed it several yards into the crate.
It's easy. You try.
I knelt down gingerly in the soil, a little apprehensive about getting my frock dirty. I rummaged around in the nearest patch of greens and traced my finger down a stem until I uncovered the top of a carrot and pressed. Nothing happened.
Press harder.
I gave it my all. The resistance finally broke after a few difficult seconds, and I nearly fell face first into the carrot patch. Oh!
There you go. Now, pull it out.
I regained my composure and removed the carrot from the earth quite easily. Well, why does that work?
You're breaking off some of the little roots holding it in place.
That's miraculous. I never would have guessed.
It just works. Plants are wonderful. Thank God for plants.
Bless you, plants.
Blants.
She continued harvesting carrots, and I followed suit. There's certainly a lot here.
We need as much food as we can get before winter starts, and carrots are good in everything.
I hadn't thought at all about that. What else do you grow for the winter?
Peas, sprouts, cress, parsnips,
Goodness.
leeks, celeriac, beans, beets,
And you take care of all of it?
with help. But yes, I do.
Remarkable. That's very admirable.
I like to help. And when people help me help well, that's a very good feeling indeed.
I picked up the pace a little, slightly more confident about my carrot pulling abilities all of a sudden. And you tend to the animals as well?
Yes.
You've certainly got a lot of responsibilities.
There are actually not that many animals.
Like, total? Or just here?
Yes.
I see. I think even just a few ducks might be too much for me to handle.
The ducks are friendly, so that helps.
How many ducks could you take on in a fight? Oh, right. Hold on. No, we had this conversation.
Other than that, we just have sheep, and that's a shared responsibility.
Oh, really? With who?
A man from the village spends some time up here in a little house and helps with the sheep.
Ah, we have another person.
Interesting.
Another person who has reason to be around the abbey. I didn't know there were others living up here on the hill with us.
On this hill, just him, and he is a bit of a walk from us.
Still. I mean, I guess we are, if we want to really be dickish about it, we are close enough to the town that it's like not inconceivable that someone could just be up here, but like it's isolated enough,
Yeah.
right? Still, we want to know who's who here. It was strange, having a more in-depth conversation with Darcy. Her odd manner of speaking, I must confess, had belied the thoughtfulness with which she listened and responded. Her words came thick and slow, like treacle, and sometimes it felt like any emotions they carried were delayed. Nonetheless, it was clear that she was lucid and intelligent, just as much as if not more so than anyone else I had spent time with so far at the convent. So I picked my next questions carefully. It was a rare privilege to see you in the process of having a vision yesterday.
Oh, right. Yeah. Was it now?
Yes. That's a beautiful and powerful thing.
I wish I could remember them.
Eustace writes them down for you, doesn't she?
Yes, but that's not the same. I do appreciate her doing that, but I wish I could keep track of them myself.
You don't remember them at all afterwards?
Not at all.
You know, the one you had yesterday was rather prophetic.
Oh, really?
Yes, I mean, fire, goat. It was perfectly accurate.
I predicted your prank.
Darcy, would you believe me if I told you that it wasn't a practical joke I came up with? That I really saw a monster of some sort? And a goat?
Probably not, but go on.
I promise you that I did.
Well, you know me, I do think this place is haunted.
This is an interesting conversation because we assume that Darcy has to be one of the people that's at least in on part of it. If not the main operator. She admitted to being the one that knocked on her door to get her to go out there.
Yeah.
So, like, even if she was just like as far in as that, like she's still like tangentially related to this. At a minimum, she was asked to, like, she did that much. Whether or not Even though Eustace seemed to be like, kind of like, like, oh, I didn't know we were going to make it back. It seems like maybe Eustace prodded her into it. But I don't, or maybe someone else gave her the idea and Darcy was genuinely like, just going to do it on that suggestion. Anyway.
But I'm not sure I've seen anything like that. It's a little haunted here, but not goat sacrifice haunted. So that would be strange. I suppose a practical joke is more plausible. But if it wasn't your prank, whose could it have been?
Well, that's just the thing. I don't know. An idea came to me in a flash. Do you think I could read Eustace's full journal about yesterday's vision? Perhaps there had been some other clue written down in there that I had missed. Something that could help me determine what had really happened. Or at the very least comfort me with the knowledge that I was not truly being pursued by ghosts or devils.
Dunno. You'd have to ask her.
Oh, really? It's your vision, though.
It's Eustace's writing.
Fair enough. There was a long pause. That was the end of that matter, evidently. So does the abbey keep any goats?
No goats, just sheep and ducks.
I was just curious, honestly. I was under the impression that goats were common fixtures at abbeys. The same books that had led me to assume that the abbey I lived in would follow some sort of structural plan had also painted a rather specific picture of their inhabitants. Not having any goats to tend to was at least not as egregious as condensing the hours, but it did complicate my understanding of what I had seen the night prior. And again, I suppose Darcy would have noticed if a goat had gone missing.
Would you like to meet one?
Meet a goat?
Yes, because I can probably arrange that if you want to see a goat.
Ooh, okay, so we're learning who the goat person is. This is good, this is good.
They are very sweet and funny. Last time I saw a goat, it chewed on my sleeve and took a big hole out of it, and I had to get Moira to sew it back up. And then I had one sleeve with slightly less fabric than the other sleeve, so it looked funny.
That does sound very fun. But no, I was actually curious because if I had seen a goat, where would it have come from? An impish grin crept over Darcy's face as she loaded carrots into the crate.
I think I know where this is going. You've been having me on a bit, haven't you? We're working on a new practical joke.
No.
See, I knew you had to be joking when you said you saw a goat, because there are no goats here, so you couldn't have seen one. But if you really wanted to get your hands on one for a new prank... Sister Hedwig.
I whipped around to see Angela looming over the vegetable patch, looking as icy as ever. Yes, Sister Angela?
You were meant to be working in the library today. Instead, I've been looking all over for you.
Yes, well, I finished my work there early, so
I'm sure you must have done a superlative job. The Superior wishes to speak to you before luncheon.
I could taste the poison in those words, and I almost enjoyed it. Almost. I'm sure she wants to know what my first day of real work went. I'm just helping Darcy with the carrots, and then I'll be on my way.
I am to take you to her now.
I stood up, brushing my hands off on my robe. I think I know my way to her office, if you'd like to exchange places.
No, I don't think so. I was given a job to do.
Yes, well, I was too.
Oh, you're taking orders from Darcy now?
Wasn't really an order, but...
It's all right, Hedwig. I can take it from here. Wonderful. Let us be going then.
I tossed Darcy an apologetic glance that I hoped she caught as I followed Angela away from the garden. We walked in silence to the Superior's office. Angela's presence usually made me feel meek, but something about helping Darcy had given me a small boost of confidence. I spent the walk imagining several witty and biting things I could say to Angela if she happened to speak. She didn't, of course. Not until we arrived at the Superior's door.
Well, have a productive meeting.
She made a show of turning on her heel and marching away briskly. I thought of a few more clever things I could have said before clearing my mind as best I could and knocked on the door. After yesterday's arguments with the superior, I had resolved to be as polite and demure as possible. I would speak to the superior with the respect her station demanded, and I would save any pythiness for an imagined Sister Angela. The door swung open and the superior ushered me inside. We exchanged basic pleasantries before diving right into the heart of the matter.
How was your first day of working in the library?
It was, more tumultuous than I expected, Your Reverence.
Really now, I wouldn't have expected Eustace to be a particularly difficult person for you to work with.
I suppose I have a lot to live up to. Everyone's expectations make me feel nervous.
I sympathize. Try not to let it bother you, however. The most important expectations here are mine.
Yes, Your Reverence.
Try not to be nervous. You are performing admirably for me so far.
Of course, Your Reverence.
There's no need to overcorrect for your insolent outburst yesterday. Speak to me as you would anyone else.
Yes, Yes. I bowed my head a little. Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated with how arbitrary every little application of tradition around here was. I was being admonished for speaking properly now, after I'd been so rude. Honestly.
Anyway, we are going to take a little walk.
Right now?
Yes, it's time you met the accused.
Won't it be fairly obvious that we're gone?
Everyone else will be busy finishing their morning walk or preparing luncheon. Outside of creeping away to the hospitalum in the dead of night, there's no time like the present for us to leave unannounced.
I see. The idea did not thrill me. Then again, speaking with James had been my idea in the first place, so I had little room to object. Does anyone else know?
Of course not.
She opened the door and held it for me. In the best circumstances at this point in time, the Abbey felt strange and alien to me still. Knowing that we were attempting to slip out without anyone noticing, however, made the place feel actively hostile. I jumped at every mid-morning shadow, held my breath passing every blind corner, even though Superior walked ahead of me. The building seemed to be in more disrepair the further from the cloister we got. The wall protecting the side of the Abbey was downright shabby. Bricks lay in the grass and moss was bursting out of the mortar. Doesn't seem like a place that has a lot of money. Is the hospitalum not part of the Abbey?
It was built much further away than is useful, I must say. Are you all right? You're a bit pale.
It had just struck me that I was about to leave the confines of the Abbey, hardly a day after being ripped from my cell. Compared to my organized existence in that small room, the corridors and cloister already felt like a whole new world. It is so hard to read this text on this particular background.
Yeah.
My country for just like 2 or 3 more points of bold outline on those letters there.
Yeah.
Stepping beyond those walls felt like a whole new level of transgression. I'm all right. Finally, something else other than Lynbarrow Abbey in the upper right corner.
Yeah. Lynbarrow Tor.
Oh, wait, what's Tor mean?
It means hill.
Oh, I should have known that because I saw the video on Torpenhow Hill.
Yeah, I was going to say, you showed me the video on Torpenhow Hill. That's why I know a Tor is a hill.
That. Yeah. If nothing else, it was quite beautiful out there. From here I could see that a thick fog encircled the tor the Abbey was built upon, almost as if it were nestled in the eye of a great storm. Down the steep hill I could just barely make out the nearest village. The little buildings were situated on the edge of a lake so large that it disappeared into the mist. We're so far from the village. It's rather strange.
Truthfully, what isn't strange around here?
True. I just realized something.
Yeah.
She really is acting with like surprise at being out in the world like this. She even mentioned that she hadn't ever set foot outside the cell she was put in. When did she become an anchoress?
I don't know.
I don't think she'd be reacting like this if she had been like a young adult when she had taken on the job.
Yeah.
Right? Because like even like as a kid, you have enough internality to like see the world around you and like she would have had those memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just how long has she been in there for?
Yeah. Long ass time.
Yeah. That's true. But even the architecture is not what I would have expected. I had noticed actually that the Abbey's buildings don't quite line up with St. Gal's plan. Or the Romanesque plan.
Our abbey was built in somewhat curious circumstances, I am told. I would believe it. It was evidently not laid out by a master architect.
Okay, that's a good way of eliding it, but, so was it built to something else and then retrofitted into an abbey?
I wonder.
Is this like a scenario where it was built for something else and then the abbey was built atop to obfuscate? Or is it really that's just how it is? I don't know. It's the beginning of a mystery game, right? I'm still like assuming what could be the point of obfuscating any particular detail. Do you have any idea why?
Because it would have cost a great deal more money to build it properly, I suspect.
Money is no object when it comes to houses of worship, surely.
That is, sadly, not how it works. Often it falls to a generous benefactor to fund a new community. The great halls of Kirkstall, for example, were paid for by a lord. Bungay Priory was paid for by a countess. Linbarrow Tor, well, I'd like to know, to tell you the truth.
You don't know who actually funded this place?
No.
Well then. Okay, so I do think that is something we should be paying attention to then.
Yeah.
Because it certainly seems like there might be something there. Because in the intro sequence, the gentleman was speaking to someone who, the person that they had gone to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person whose domain they were in. They mentioned that the abbey was somewhere where they could go to get away.
Yep.
Right? It would make sense then if that person was the one who had funded the abbey in the first place.
Is the abbey that new?
That's a good point. We don't know how new.
It looks old as shit.
Hedwig is in what? Her late 20s or early 30s? Late 20s. And she's been in there most of, not her old life, right?
Would it get to this point where it was craggy and decaying and bits falling down?
That's a good point. That doesn't quite match up, does it? Okay. So then... Worth pondering over. Keep that train of thought in your mind.
I am not the first abbess, and hopefully not the last. The history of our community has not been particularly well recorded. I hope you can improve that once we are free of this foul mystery.
I turned to look at the monastery from a distance.
That looks cool as hell.
That looks cool as shit. It really does. Oh man, that's pretty. Oh man, I like you could tell that it's like a photograph and another photograph spliced in the background, right? But the art style in this works so well. The heavily saturated, bold black and white with very minor grayscale elements, right? It's such a visually distinct and impactful design aesthetic. I love it. I'm all about it.
Seeing it on like a hilltop on a rock from a distance from here is reminding me of that one time I went to Greece.
Yeah.
And it was around Easter, and we visited a bunch of like places that had Orthodox abbeys and so on. And it was very cool seeing that shit.
It does seem cool.
Truly interesting architecture.
Huh. I just had a thought in my mind and now I can't remember what it was. Well, if it comes back to me, I'll let you know. Otherwise, we'll continue on. I turned to look at the monastery from a distance. Oh, right. What I was going to say was that Hedwig is taking these walks remarkably well for someone who hasn't been out of her cell for 20 some odd years or whatever. Like, even if you don't move a whole lot, that's going to atrophy, right? You're going to atrophy stuff just by standing in one place for a long time.
Maybe she spent her time when she wasn't reading the Bible or writing stuff just doing push-ups. Maybe she's jacked.
Cardio. You know what? She might be. Maybe she is jacked.
We've established that she's small, but we haven't established that she's weak.
True.
She could be strong as hell.
Even from far away, I could see that it was fairly dilapidated, oddly situated, and altogether somewhat crooked. How old is it?
I'm afraid I don't know that either. Monasteries serve many purposes. Way houses, centers of learning and study, beacons of spiritual guidance for local communities. Lynn Barrow is none of these. I would quite like to see it become one day. Another reason why our mission is of the utmost importance. This place is falling apart, Sister Hedwig.
I understand. The superior nodded, and we continued walking to the hospitality.
So that would be a motive for why the superior would make a deal with some lord to hide a guy under the
in
abbey's
exchange
protection.
for
money to renovate the abbey.
And now that the person that she was asked to take in has been murdered, all of a sudden...
Wait, the person she was asked to take in has been murdered? So we're assuming that Catherine is...
I thought that was our working theory for now.
Oh,
was
okay.
that Catherine was the gentleman.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we had hypothesized that. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's still our working theory. Like, I mean, we obviously don't have anything other than a gut instinct to go on, but like that would neatly tie together the opening scene to what we're seeing now, right?
Yep.
Again, we don't have anything hard to go on for that other than a gut feeling, but it seems to make some of this stuff work. So it's worth considering. Hospitalum was an odd little building. It looked like a piece of the chapel that had been broken off and placed in the middle of a field, with nothing but a beaten path indicating that it was meant to be part of any larger community. I was somewhat relieved that it was not readily visible until we had crested a small hillock during our walk. We did not go in through the front door. Instead, the superior bade me follow her around to the back of the building, to a smaller door. I could see a hole where the wall of the building met the ground as we walked past. This really was a haphazardly constructed place.
So no locked rooms here.
Yeah, hole of the where the wall of the building met the ground. Interesting. So wow. Okay, yeah. I guess. Well, I mean, we already knew that since there were no locks to begin with on those doors,
Yep.
but still.
Watch the
I will be honest. It'll be nice to like not have to puzzle out a misery. It involves keeping track of keys and locks and like ugh.
Yeah. Watch the stairs. They're quite steep.
She produced the same keyring that had taunted me so when I heard it in my cell, and it was impossible not to gasp as the door swung open and I saw what lay inside. A stone staircase led down into what looked like a cellar, only there were iron bars splitting the room in half. Well, hello there, Mr. Foreman. I jumped as a figure scurried out of the dark corner of this horrible room. I looked panicked, slightly younger than I, to be sure. He looked... Oh, sorry, I misread. He looked panicked, slightly younger than I, to be sure. His clothes were rumpled and his hair was messy. There was a putrid stench lingering in the room that I did not want to guess the source of. He might have had a boyish charm under the better circumstances, but imprisonment had clearly taken its toll. I was struck with a rush of pity when our eyes met. He rushed forward, throwing himself against the bars and gripping them with bloodied fingers. He pressed his face between them to bring us as close together as he possibly could. Do you want me to be James? So you're not taking everyone, or do you want to be?
I can be James.
Okay.
Oh, thank God. Step back, boy, if only a little. I couldn't bend these bars. Believe me, I've tried. Nevertheless.
His eyes darted between the superior's and my own a few times before he relented. He took a step back and breathed deeply. He really was a pathetic sight to behold.
This is Sister Hedwig. She would like to ask you some questions. Questions? What bloody questions could you possibly ask?
Did you kill Sister Catherine?
No, I didn't kill no one.
He paused for a moment, looking me up and down, and then turned to the superior.
That's it? You've held me here for how long? Had me wait in this shithole while you promised to get me help.
Promised to get him help.
And you bring me another nun to ask the same goddamn question I've answered over and over. Have you no shame? I am sorry. If you were, I wouldn't be locked up in here.
He's speaking to the superior. Is he just angry because the superior promised him something and then he was like, oh yeah, you promised things that they're empty promises? Or do they have a prior relationship?
I don't know.
That is coming into play here.
Hedwig, I will wait outside. Conduct your questioning with some haste so we can be back in time for luncheon. What do you want?
You're sure you did not kill her? You promise?
What good is my word? You've already decided. You have no evidence, but neither do I.
Well, it would matter to me. The mouth that lies kills the soul, as it is written.
Aye, that they do.
Are you a God-fearing man?
As much as anyone around here is.
Then would you promise me you did not kill Catherine?
It doesn't matter what promise I could offer.
Promise me! The stable boy recoiled in shock. I was surprised myself. I had stamped my foot down so hard it had kicked up dust from the filthy cellar floor, and it lingered in the air for a while as the young man and I stared at each other.
I promise. I swear to you, I've never killed nobody, least of all some poor woman.
I believe you.
Fantastic. And where does that leave us?
I have more questions.
Of course you do.
Why were you here that night?
I made the mail and supply deliveries sometimes from the village.
In the middle of the night? At night? Thank you, Hedwig.
Not usually, no. I had forgotten something, a letter. I saw it laying in the dirt when I got to the bottom of the hill and came back first thing next morning to deliver it.
Interesting. Came back first, lying in the dirt when he... So it might not even be something that he dropped. It could be something that someone else left there for some other reason or dropped on their own. Just because he's the one that carries the mail, he assumed that when he found it in the dirt, it was something that was his. Interesting. What was in the letter?
How should I know? I'm no murderer and I'm not a thief neither.
Of course, that was a silly question.
From where I'm standing, all your questions are worth just the same.
I want to get you out of here. I want to help you.
You lot keep saying that, but if you wanted to help, you could just open that door and set me free. Let me go home.
I don't have the key.
Then you could call your bloody superior down and have her do it.
I can't. She wouldn't.
Then how can you help me? This isn't fair. This isn't right. Isn't this a convent? Why do you witches even have a dungeon?
He raised an honest point. For extreme situations like this, I suppose.
Will I ever see a judge, or do you lot still do the ordeals around here?
I don't know.
Fat lot of good your help is to me, then.
I want to prove your innocence.
Who to?
To everyone!
Your superior says she believes me as well. If you believe me, that's well and good, but clearly something else is keeping me here. And this track kicks in.
Yeah.
This is our first time hearing this one in the game, but you got the soundtrack and we heard this earlier.
Yeah, this one's great. Oh, man. And he's making a good point. Like, the superior laid out a pretty rational case for it, right? Like, she has to have a name.
Yep.
But...
Who am I meant to answer to instead of a jury? I'll tell you what I think. I don't think you believe me at all, you or her. I think you're keeping me calm before you put me down like a lame horse.
Superior, Mother Superior! The door swung open after a moment.
Are you finished?
No, I have a question for you, actually.
Very well.
Why can't we just let him go?
I would have thought that was obvious. Justice must be done one way or another, lest we risk open revolt from the other sisters. They want blood one way or another. So what happens next if you don't prove my innocence? The bishop will decide. The bishop? Yes, he has been informed of the general situation. When he makes his usual visit at the end of the month to deliver the sacraments, he will deal with it along with any other business.
So no matter what, somebody's going to be handed over to him?
Yes, and I want it to be the right person. I will wait outside once more for you two to finish up. Do hurry. This is hopeless. You're no constable.
Please, help me to do my best. Tell me the whole story of the morning you were caught. Don't overlook any details.
Very well. I arrived late with that missing letter, and I noticed that the sister I normally hand them off to wasn't where I would normally find her.
Okay, so he had an important detail. He had made a trip the night before. Or had made a...
So it sounds like he's saying he wasn't there that night.
Because when he was speaking earlier, he had run up to... Right, so he had made a trip that day. dropped off what he thought was everything, and then made it back and found a missing letter at the bottom of the hill. He arrived late, then he doubled back to go deliver that. He arrived late, the sister he normally handed off to wasn't where he'd normally find her. Right, because it's not the correct hours for this.
Yep.
Okay. So he's gone up and down twice now. Or up twice, down once. And where's that?
The library. She did a lot of writing, as far as I know.
Okay, so he walked in and went to Catherine's station.
Yep.
Did you check anywhere else? Wait, was there a letter on our desk when we got... no. Maybe I'm imagining. Did you check anywhere else?
Well, I didn't want to overstay my welcome, especially at night. Okay, so it was at night that he came back.
Yes. Because so putting it together, he would have done his usual trip up, dropped his stuff off, got back down to the village, realized, oh shit, I missed one, and run back up and be like, oh, maybe I could just make it right. It's weird that he would have done that rather than waiting, I guess.
Maybe he only gets a chance to do it once a month or something.
Right, maybe it's like if it had to wait, it would have waited for like another however long.
Yeah.
Or like, okay, like that doesn't have to be suspicious. But the fact that he went back at night instead of holding it till the next morning feels weird, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, my thought was maybe it does, or maybe it's something where he has another job and he only gets one day a month or something.
Right.
We don't quite know.
We don't quite know yet.
There are reasons he might have to. I wouldn't dare poke my head into the dorms, but she wasn't in the misery what's-it neither.
Who did you end up giving the letter to?
I don't know everyone's names. I don't know your name even.
It's Hedwig. Sister Hedwig.
James Foreman.
I wish I could say it was a pleasure. James offered me a grim, humorless smile.
I was looking for someone else to give it to for a bit. I don't know the place very well.
And you couldn't have just, I don't know, left it on a table somewhere and gone home?
Well, that's just it, see? I couldn't. A job halfway done is worse than not done at all, my old man always said.
That's very astute.
Allow me a little dignity. Thank you kindly, ma'am. I was looking around for someone to ask for help when someone grabbed me and said they'd caught me.
Wait, hold on. What does that comment mean? What does he mean, allow me a little dignity?
Oh.
Just a good job halfway done. I don't understand that little interaction there, but I know you don't know anyone's names, but who? Can you describe her?
Well, she was stern, I suppose. Beaky, if you'll excuse me saying.
Angela, probably.
Yes, I think I remember one of the others calling her that. It's all quite a blur after that, if I'm being honest. I was scared out of my wits as soon as she nabbed me.
Well, what about the blood on your tunic?
Blood? What blood?
Ooh. That explains the inconsistency with what we found with the tunic, and because we already pointed that out, how it didn't quite make sense that you take off your tunic to wipe the blood off the sword or whatever, and then stash it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. It really does seem like he was set up.
Yep.
Your tunic was bloodied. That was one of the first things I was told.
I left my tunic in the cart. I was only here to deliver a letter.
Explain.
I hadn't worn my tunic since the day prior. I swear to you, I wasn't wearing no tunic when Angela grabbed me by the ear.
Huh. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. I wanted to believe him, but that required believing that there was a much deeper conspiracy at work than I could have imagined. We were both so still that I could hear the wood above us creaking and bending. It was almost as if the building itself was breathing. Finally, the silence was broken by the door atop the stairs opening.
Are you satisfied? We should go back soon. We cannot miss luncheon. Have you seen it? Have you seen my tunic? What is he talking about?
His tunic, the one covered in blood. He says he wasn't wearing it the morning he was found.
Impossible. I saw the thing myself. It's ghastly. I swear I wasn't wearing it. It's true, damn you. Someone is lying. I have seen it. It is indeed bloodied, and I can have Eustace pull it out of storage to show you. However, I'm being betrayed, set up. Anyone could have gone to my cart and taken it.
You were only there for a short while, no? Did you pass anyone on your way from the cart to the library?
No, I didn't. Then it's just your word against a bloody tunic. I must say it's not very convincing. You said you believed me. And I do, but I am not the one who needs convincing, unfortunately. You are. I hear those keys jingling. Just let me go. You'll never hear from me again. I'll run away, find another job somewhere. You will do no such thing. Curse both of you then. Some help you are.
Is there anyone you know here who might have had it out for you? I can't imagine anyone doing such a horrible thing.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would buy that, like, he's anything more than the victim of opportunity here, right? Like, it doesn't seem like a random stable boy is going to be the subject for someone's particular ire. It's more the fact that, there's someone we can blame it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I at least from where I'm standing right now, it seems more likely that James was unfortunately caught up in this and being used as a patsy. I guess not a patsy because he wasn't even, like, you know what I mean. He's being used as a scapegoat. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Than him being targeted for this. No?
No. Well, that will have to do for now. I hope you learned something useful, Hedwig, for all our sakes. Wait. There is one more thing that may help my cause. Someone can vouch for my not wearing that tunic that morning.
Who?
Sister Catherine, the other one.
I thought you didn't pass anyone on the way in.
She was in the library when I went up there to find Catherine. The other Catherine. God rest her.
She was in the library, huh? What does she do in the library?
I don't know. Well, it is certainly not much, but it might be a start.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Has word been sent back down to the village about why I'm gone? Yes. That's good, I suppose. And have you had any word back? I have not. Shame that.
He looked utterly defeated, so much that I could not bear looking at him any longer. A small part of me wanted to wrench the keys from Mother Superior's hand and free the wretch myself.
Ma'am, you had me promise you I was telling the truth, and I did. Will you promise to find whoever did this to me?
I can't promise that. I can't promise what I don't know is possible.
Do you promise you'll try? Please?
Yes. Yes, I will. I promise I will do my utmost. We bowed to the poor young man and headed back up the precarious staircase to the outside world. I dared not turn around to see his expression as we left. I could not bear it. The Superior and I didn't speak on the walk back to the Abbey. I was torn between feeling curious about the wide world I had stepped into and worrying that someone in the stone buildings ahead of us was watching. I half expected an arrow to come sailing over the wall and strike me dead in the chest. However, almost as soon as this gory image crossed my mind, the fog between us and the monastery thickened. I found this comforting, as if I was perhaps being watched over by God on my righteous quest. How very, very silly of me. The thought carried me for a little while, though. All covered with thin plaster. What a good game this is.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you stumbled on this.
Yeah.
How did you hear about this originally?
Twitter, I think.
Nice.
I think it might have been, who's the person that does, Coquette Dragoon?
Oh, I don't know, because I haven't played Coquette Dragoon yet.
I think it might have been that developer's Twitter, but don't quote me on that.
Well, regardless, it's pretty awesome.
Luncheon is gonna be late today. I see. What happened? Well, a cat happened, I think.
After a brisk walk through the grounds, the Superior and I had approached the rectory. According to her, we had made perfect time. However, the rectory hall was empty when we arrived. Now Darcy was explaining to an increasingly bewildered Superior that Lynn Barrow had yet another mystery within its walls.
A cat. I was roasting the duck when I heard some rustling, and then some pots fell over behind me. Oh dear. It could have been a ghost, and I was wondering if it was a ghost at first, but then I heard it meowing. So it was probably a cat. A cat ghost.
Do cats have ghosts? Do we have ghosts? Does that work with Christian theology? I don't...
There's at least one, the Holy Ghost.
Right, but like, that's a special case, no? Aren't we meant to be going other places? That is a relief, at least.
Could be both. Anyway, while I was picking up the pots, I think it tried to eat the duck because I heard it yowling and then it ran out the door.
Poor thing, probably singed its whiskers.
It's a disgusting little creature and I won't have it bringing the plague in here. I am not taking any chances. I'm making a new lunch. That's why it'll be late. Good. Is someone looking for the vermin? Eustace. Godspeed to her. Is everyone else informed of the delay? Nearly everyone was milling about outside the rectory ready for lunch, so I had to disappoint them.
Interesting, so our absence would have been noted.
I think Adela and Marta are still in the cellars. And I suppose Moira was on her way to bell duty.
Just as the bell hits.
Yep. Well, it seems like everything is in order. I look forward to the meal.
She nodded at Darcy, who didn't seem to be paying her any attention, and then ducked out of the kitchen.
Yes, Soup, everything is in order. That's why someone died.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry.
You are all right, my friend. I just wish she wouldn't pretend nothing is hanging over all of us at the moment.
Interesting. Is that Darcy genuine feelings, or is she performing for us because she has some way of knowing that we are what our true objective is?
Huh?
I understand.
Well, what can you do? Some people are just detached from it all.
Ooh, is that how they think of her? Do you need any help cooking?
I have it in order, but thank you for the offer.
Darcy, you capitalized the beginning of your sentence.
Oh! You were already a big help with the carrots this morning.
I gave Darcy a little bow and then stepped out of the kitchen.
I heard the bell, but there's no food.
There was an incident in the kitchen, so things are going to be late today.
No, I know, but the bell just rang, so... Hello, you two. Ready for lunch?
No, actually,
It's going to be late today, apparently. Oh, no, and I already rang the... Yes. Whoopsie daisy, I've been so busy today. Preparing to ring the bell, and then thinking about ringing the bell, and then ringing the bell.
Wow, that sure does take a lot of effort.
Me too. Oh, really? What have you been up to? Well, after service this morning, I felt tired, so I took a nap. Oh no, were you up late again last night? What do you mean again? Oh, come on, I know you. Don't listen to her, she's crazy.
Moira laughed and pulled Flora into a one-armed hug, which Flora seemed to appreciate very little. Given that we had both seen Flora emerge from the Misericorde last night, it seemed that Moira was entirely correct, although I was determined not to take sides. Have either of you seen a cat? Supposedly that's the villain responsible for the lunch delay.
A cat? Would we even need one? I've never seen a mouse here.
Darcy said that one got into the kitchen and was knocking things around. Got too close to the fire, the poor little creature.
It's just a cat. Do you like cats, Hedwig?
Well, I don't know, really. I imagine they're quite sweet.
Oh, of course, silly me, always forgetting. You've never seen a cat? I suppose she wouldn't have ever had one in her cell. Oh, right. Well, they're, a bit creepy. I think. I wouldn't know. The devil plays with the sinner like the cat does with a mouse, after all. Come to think of it, are there any cats in the Bible?
Oh, finally! Bible trivia! Finally, I've been activated. Oh, only one, actually.
Hedwig Bible Bowl spinoff.
Oh, invite Hedwig to your Bible bowl and get crushed. Mentioned offhand in the letter of Jeremiah as part of Baruch.
I was so bad at Bible Bowl.
I'm glad I never did that. Oh, man. All of my, youth Christian stuff was just kind of a blur now.
And, very mainline Protestant, if I remember correctly. Was it, Methodist?
Yeah.
Was your family?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we were Methodist. Which I understand is the Diet Coke of Christian upbringings. But still was, too much for me. I was just like, ugh.
Huh? Goodness, you really are a scholar. Hold on. What about lions? What about them? Never mind. Oh.
I flushed red. It was deeply embarrassing to be bested this way, and especially by Flora. Wasn't even sure she had actually read the Bible.
Well, it just goes to show all of us have places we could brush up on in our understanding of Scripture.
Indeed. I smiled weakly at the pair of them and took my leave. I was feeling quite strained after the morning's stressful events, and I wasn't sure how much more social interaction I could handle before eating. I was angrier than I should have been about Flora's observation about lions. Angry at her or myself, I wasn't quite sure. Either way, I certainly did not feel up to the task of playing Inquisitor with Catherine with a K. I decided to go for a stroll around the paths between the rectory and the garden. I had been surprised by Darcy's shocking outburst, well, relatively at least, as soon as the superior had been out of earshot, but I was now finding myself agreeing with her. In total, the events of the past 2 days, day and a half really, had been unlike anything I could have possibly imagined while whittling away the hours in my cell. Do you find it mad, too? I had seen a ghost or devil in front of my very eyes the night before. Yet here I was, wandering around the Abbey grounds, overwhelmed by the prospect of talking to any more human beings for a little while. The others had not believed me when I told them about the monstrous apparition, and it was that doubt, I think, that might have kept me from unraveling completely. At that moment, the most terrifying prospect in front of me was sharing a meal in a room with someone who, potentially, had stolen a man's tunic to cover up a vicious murder. But then surely all of that paled in comparison to what I had seen the night prior. An impossible creature threatening me with its blade before disappearing without a trace. If I held either of these scenarios in my head for too long, the grim tangibility of Sister Catherine's murder, or the possibility that I had seen some kind of devil with my own eyes, I felt faint. No, I felt worse than faint. I felt like St. Vincent on the rack, having to choose exactly which end of myself I'd prefer to have burned, one thought at a time. Are you, writing any of this down, by the way? Not that I'd mind if you did. She might not approve, though. I hear she holds quite fast to her rules, despite all appearances.
Interesting.
What does that
Who
mean?
is she?
She might not approve, though, of... So, this isn't Hedwig reporting to the soup, it seems. It feels a weird way of doing that. This is someone else after the fact telling her about this. Didn't she say she was also in another cell at this point?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it... Okay, here, if we haven't already guessed, maybe she's been framed for for something else after the fact?
Maybe.
And in covering all this, she winds up being put in jail and someone else tries to come to her and get the story from her.
Perhaps.
As well. She holds quite fast to her rules despite all appearances. Interesting. Anyway. While wandering, I find myself at the door to the chapel. I felt compelled to enter. What better place to collect myself? If anything I could ease my mind at this point, it would be a moment's prayer. With some difficulty, I swung open the heavy door. Okay, so she still has trouble. Okay, so she does. All right. I strolled through the aisle, taking a moment to gaze up at the high ceiling. to feel at peace for just a
I've suddenly forgotten who Margaret is.
She's another one of the nuns.
Okay. We have got... Is she the one that
I just realized that was the least helpful thing I could have said.
Oh,
right?
she's the one that I'd been doing a quiet voice for. We have got to stop meeting like this.
Ah!
Sorry. It can be a little shadowy in here.
That's quite all right. I'm just learning that I'm easily startled since leaving my cell.
Nobody could blame you for that. How are you adjusting today? Did you start writing?
I did, as a matter of fact.
Lovely. Eustace wasn't too hard on you?
No. Liar.
That's good. I'm sure you'll end up locking horns eventually, so be ready. That's interesting. So some folks are like, oh, obviously you'll get along with Eustace. I'd be surprised if you didn't. And here Margaret is saying, like, it's inevitable that you'll end up locking horns with Eustace. So Margaret and the superior have a different view of what Eustace is like.
Wait, so she's calling Margaret a liar? Or herself?
Herself.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That the way that she's portrayed differently by different people. It kind of gives you an idea of who's on whose side here. Really? But Eustace seems so quiet, generally.
She is, but it's very easy to rile her up.
As we noticed.
Especially if you disagree with her about something.
She and Catherine with a C used to bicker a lot, I take it?
Oh, endlessly. Especially about chronicling.
Margaret extended a hand to the pew nearest us.
Care to sit?
Of course. We sat down together. Margaret gazed at the pulpit briefly before continuing.
Eustace is very intelligent, and Catherine was too. And intelligent people sometimes enjoy having a go at each other for sport. It's how they show affection.
What on earth would Catherine with a C write that would irritate Eustace so much?
I didn't read much of her chronicling, to tell you the truth. I don't think anyone here does. The job is really about writing something down for people to argue about years later.
I suppose if we were living here, reading about it wouldn't be very interesting.
Catherine had the same thought. She wrote about all kinds of things.
I am meant to do that as well, I think.
The letters? Yes, those were her sticking point. I think you're meant to just copy them word for word to mark time, but Catherine would go quite deep on some of them. There was one instance a couple of years ago.
Yes?
Actually, no, I thought of a better one. Have you ever heard of Reims Cathedral? Reims?
No, actually.
It's a very big cathedral in France. One of the biggest, in fact. It's quite grand. Anyway, it was damaged in a great fire, and Catherine was meant to write that down. Instead, she demanded to write a letter to the municipality over the smallest detail. There was a note in the letter about how the king had granted the city an octroi, and the funds for the octroi, and that funds for the repairs were coming from a tax on salt.
What?
That was more or less what everyone else said. Catherine was furious, though.
What on earth for?
Well, certainly I think none of us would have noticed, but she had a point. France taxes salt very heavily, and Catherine thought it was highly unfair that the building was going to be repaired with money she said was being stolen from the poor.
I must admit that this is completely beyond my understanding.
Everyone needs salt, and everyone in France is taxed on it equally. It's how you make food survive the winter, for one thing, but it's an incredibly useful and valuable thing. I dread to think how much we spend on salt here, to tell you the truth. But mercifully, we don't have to pay quite the same way the French do.
It just seems like a petty thing to pick at. The building needed repairing, but...
Yes, but Catherine was beside herself for days. I remember her stalking around the halls, muttering to herself in very poor French. Au diable vos flèches. Au diable vos flèches. I can't say French, which was meant to be, damn your spires, or some such. Eustace forbade her to write it in a letter to the diocese on the subject.
She was going to tell the diocese, damn your spires? Margaret threw her head back and laughed, clearly enjoying a fond memory.
The diocese? No, she was demanding to send a letter to the king.
My goodness.
Catherine sulked for days after Eustace told her off for that one.
All over a building?
It isn't about the building, it's about the very soul of the church, is what Catherine would tell you. She really found it distasteful that the repairs would be built at the expense of the people's basic needs, and wanted to make that known to anyone she could with a say in the matter. It wasn't the only time she got herself worked up over a building either. She heard about the last remaining ruins of the Lighthouse of Alexandria being paved over to build a way for it. And she spent a whole week badgering Adela, asking if she knew enough Arabic to help her write a letter of complaint to the Sultan.
I can understand her position, just it seems so,
Wait, so did this happen before the Reconquista? Where's my... I need to get the timeline on this right. What year are we in right now?
I believe it was the 1480s. I keep saying with increasing assurity.
Okay, the Christian kingdom's wars against the Moors lasted until 1492. When Granada surrendered. But by this time, only Granada would have still been Muslim and primarily Arabic speaking, but there probably still would have been Arabic kicking around.
All right. Okay.
Plus, maybe Adela's from Granada. That would make sense if Catherine was had a reason to assume she knew Arabic. But then again, maybe just being from Spain would be reason enough.
Right.
Just wanted to. Sorry for the historical digression.
This is important. Like expounding upon the little historical sides and details, if for no other reason, helps me out immensely. Sounds rather cruel to put it that way, but Margaret grinned and shifted in her seat to face me.
That's the essence of most of the arguments Catherine got into around here. You're not wrong, but... and so on.
Sounds quite exhausting. That does fit with our idea of Catherine being the gentleman from the opening sequence. Someone who felt principled enough and waylaid by their inability to effect change enough that they would conspire to kill the King of England.
Perhaps. How long has had Catherine with a C been here?
She said years, and it's unclear where this takes place compared to the intro sequence.
Yeah.
But it's worth mulling over. Again, we could be wrong about that, but I suddenly felt my stomach drop. Not to speak any ill of her. I mean, Margaret laughed again.
You're fine. People said far worse of her while she lived. Angela once accused her of writing her own 12 conclusions. I find it rather touching that she can still put people in awkward positions like this. Her influence reaches beyond the grave.
Beyond the grave? Do you believe in ghosts?
Spirits? That's quite a question.
I apologize if it's a touch strange to ask. It just, you're not the first person who has mentioned feeling Catherine's presence lingering to me or wished aloud for it.
It's not a problem, but I should warn you that if this is an extension of your practical joke, the others are going to find bringing Catherine into the proceedings very distasteful.
Would you believe me if I insisted that there was no prank?
I would be curious to know what other explanation you could give. If you really saw what you claimed to see, why are you still here? Why didn't you start running and stop only when you reached the next village over?
I'm still mulling over the idea of running, to tell you the truth. But I don't think that I could.
That's interesting. Believe it or not, that makes me slightly more inclined to accept your story.
Really?
Very slightly.
I have no explanation for what I saw, only that I saw it. A real monster menacing me with a wicked blade.
It sounds absolutely chilling.
The thing is, if I ran, where would I go? 2 days ago, I hadn't been outside my little room. I feel like if I left,
you'd be experiencing the same confusion 10 times over.
Yes, yes, that's a good way of putting it.
The devil you know, I understand the feeling.
But you don't believe I actually saw anything. You don't accept the existence of ghosts at all, of evil spirits and the like? I was practically begging for reassurance at this point.
I wouldn't say that. I saw something once, in the cellar, late at night. A little devil with bulbous eyes and malformed teeth.
In the cellars? But don't you sneak down there to raid the pantry some nights?
Well, as I said, the devil you know. And sometimes I get quite hungry.
You're pulling my leg, aren't you?
Now, why would I do something like that?
Oh, I love her sense of humor. I like Margaret. I like her a lot. She's got this very chill vibe. We sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Margaret stood up and stretched her arms above her head.
I think that's enough of that seat for now. Luncheon will still be a bit, correct? Let's go for a walk, you and me.
Certainly. She walked briskly out of the chapel. I was too slow to help her with the large wooden doors, but she managed quite well enough on her own. She ushered me past and then took a step ahead as the door closed. Margaret wanted me to lead me somewhere, and I could not guess where.
To tell you the truth, I have always had mixed opinions about the existence of ghosts. I've seen so many things that end up being tricks of the light. Figures in the fog, that sort of thing. For years, the knocking and scraping in the walls here kept me up at night. But these buildings are very old and not particularly well built.
That's the sort of thing I like to try and comfort myself with as well.
But it's a bit different when you're all alone at night, isn't it?
Well, yes. So, do you believe me?
Perhaps I do, perhaps I don't. But either way, there's something I'd like to show you.
It's gonna be a secret passage?
Secret door.
We were walking up the stairs to the second floor.
Hold on. We're going to need a candle for this.
She jogged into the dormitories and after a moment emerged with a lit candle on a pricket.
Come with me.
She took me down the hall toward the intersection where I had seen the sword-wielding specter. There's no blood or anything here. We already looked.
We're going a bit further than that.
My heart jumped into my throat. Are we going down the hall to my cell?
Just about.
We walked together quietly for just a little while.
This hall always made me feel uncomfortable.
For a moment, I felt affronted that Margaret would even dare talk about what this hall might make her feel in my presence, but I suppressed the urge to chastise her. Nonetheless, walking down this hallway felt more precarious than my first encounter with the stairs. I take it you didn't come to the hagioscope very often, then?
Not for your advice, I'm afraid. Ah.
We arrived at my cell. Margaret handed me the candle and began rapping her knuckles against the stone wall. Eventually, she found whatever she was looking for. She inserted her fingers between two of the old stones and pulled. To my shock, the wall swung open to reveal a passageway wide enough to, just about, for one person. What?
There's passageways all over this place.
How? What?
That isn't what I wanted to show you, though.
So wait, how did this...
Secret door.
Inserted her fingers between two of the old stones and pulled. The wall swung. So that's not just there's a part of the wall that's loose so you can move. That's mechanical.
Yep, that's a secret door.
That was built that way.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another little thing to add to the what was Lynbarrow Abbey built for.
Follow me.
Every good mystery needs an equally mysterious setting. So, this is good. She took the candle back and entered the narrow tunnel. I followed her nervously.
Most abbeys have passages like this because there needs to be some space between the walls, see? It's an architectural thing. I think it helps the air as well. That's what my father used to say anyway.
Do you see our location?
In the walls.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
So this passageway isn't in and of itself particularly interesting. However...
Really? If those passageways, like, do they usually have, like, mechanical doors to get inside of them that are well hidden to like blend in with the wall? Like, even if these spaces are architecturally necessary, do you usually have ways to get into them?
I don't know.
We kept walking until we finally came to a corner.
Here we are.
She took a few steps around the bend and beckoned me to join her.
Like I was saying before, I've always been non-committal about things like luck and ghosts and curses and so on. But this always bothered me. And there have been too many things happening lately for me to discount it entirely. Parts of the abbey falling down.
Parts of the abbey falling down.
Catherine's death. And now your ghost.
By this, you mean?
Come closer.
She held the candle out in front of her to better illuminate what she was referring to.
I try not to take this passageway anymore, because this makes me nervous.
I gasped when I realized what she was looking at.
A magic circle!
Yeah! All right, we got him! Add that to your little mystery bingo. One of the bricks lining the passageway had a detestable shape etched into it. I did not know what it was, but it filled me with enough dread just to look at it that I knew it was wrong. What is this? How many points have we got on there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. So 12?
Yeah,
right?
Seems like it.
12? What on earth? Like a dodecahedron. Not dodecahedron, a dodecagon. Sorry. Let's see if you get us any more about it. Evil. My stomach churned as I remembered the superior's words to me about the provenance of the abbey. Was construction of this place really so mysterious? How could something like this have been allowed to make it into the very walls of the building? The work of some possessed builder, no doubt. A house of God built with no oversight and ill intent. I speak of it eloquently now, of course. However, in the moment, all I could do, all that I could muster, was something far less considered. Oh my God. Margaret grinned wickedly.
Steady on. What was it you told me about cursing?
Oh, yeah. Clever. I didn't speak a word the whole walk back to the chapel. I was deeply disturbed. I didn't know what that horrible symbol meant, and I didn't want to. One look at it was enough to tell me that something dark was at work within the walls, something I did not want to meddle with under any circumstances. We arrived at the chapel doors, and Margaret turned to me.
Cheer up. It's a bit grim, but I've lived with it for ages. I try not to muck about with the unknown, and it doesn't muck about with me. Much, anyway. All that being said, I think I might take credit for the prank if I were you, even if it wasn't you.
Why would I do a thing like that?
I don't know. It just seems like something you'd want people to think you were capable of.
It's a very interesting way of thinking about it.
You've got to keep people guessing, yeah? You've got to make a name for yourself.
I think I'll stick to being the chronicler.
Oh, right, yes. I forgot to mention it, but I'm sure you'll do great work at all that. You ask good questions. It might annoy Eustace, but I think that's critical for the job.
I'm afraid most of my words since leaving the cell have been questions. I'm afraid I don't have quite the same verve that Catherine with a C seems to have had.
There's no need to worry about it. Don't write like Catherine. Write like Hedwig.
I bowed my head, attempting to hide my flushed cheeks. My starved pride had allowed this sliver of a compliment to rush my head. I didn't feel too chuffed for long, though, because... The chapel bell had just begun to ring just above us, scaring me out of my wits. I must have jumped several feet into the air out of shock. Margaret was grinning ear to ear when I came back down to earth. I clutched my chest instinctively, doubled over, and tried to regain my composure.
Sorry, the superior told me to run and ring that bell for lunch, and I didn't see you two there.
But Margaret's got a knowing smile on. Did she know we were going to get belled? I could hear her voice calling out to us from far above, like some apologetic angel. Margaret called up in response, apparently unfazed.
That's all right. How on earth
Oh, whoops.
How on earth did we miss you? I came in through the back door. The superior never locks it. Yeah. I really am so sorry, Hedwig. I didn't mean to give you such a scare.
That's quite all right, Moira. Grinning the entire time. Luncheon passed without much incident. Now that I was no longer expected to sit through extended introductions of myself and others, I could enjoy my food in relative peace. Darcy's cooking was excellent and much appreciated, although I was beginning to realize that the emotional reservoir that eating refilled was shrinking with each passing meal. Part of this perhaps was the worried anticipation that someone might casually mention seeing the superior and I walking back from the hospitalum earlier. The amount of secrets I was responsible for already felt unsustainable, but the idea of those secrets coming to light was even worse. I participated in the conversation around the table superficially, just enough to avoid being asked if something was wrong. I was unsure if I'd be able to lie and say no. The Bible, of course, has plenty to say about lying. Bearing false witness breaks the commandment. Although in my time locked in a cell, I had read many musings from scholars smarter than I, about whether or not that meant all untruths, or if the commandment was speaking strictly about matters of court. I've told you my views on loose interpretation, but the Bible is inerrant. There is no getting around the fact that midwives lying to the Pharaoh's men saved many lives, for example. Still, it was difficult to feel like I was acting as selflessly as they did. I felt closer to Augustine than Cassian.
Who is Cassian?
Yeah, I feel like we already covered Augustine earlier, right?
We talked about Aquinas, I think.
Aquinas, okay.
St. Augustine is also a well-known
They've got
Christian
fancy
scholar.
names that start with an A, so... John Cassian, also known as John the Ascetic and John Cassian the Roman, was a Christian monk and theologian who celebrated in both the Western and Eastern churches for his mystical writings. Noted for his role in bringing the ideas and practices of early Christian monasticism to the medieval West.
Okay, that sounds like the right guy. Interesting. You can tell a Wikipedia article is good when there's a headline section for accusations of semi-Pelagianism.
Oh
what
my
does that mean? Who knows? But am I about to learn?
Well then. I don't think that gives us any more insight on what Hedwig is actually trying to make by her point here. I guess she's saying closer to Augustine than Cassian. Cassian as someone who was relatively monastic and therefore playing by the book, right? So is she saying that Augustine might have argued for, like, not breaking the commandments of noble intentions, but, like, doing something you know is right even if it's against the strict letter of the law?
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm taking. We haven't found anything to clarify this point, but if you know what point's being made there, that's what the comment section is for. Anyway, moving on. After luncheon, we all filed out of the rectory to return to our duties. Eustace made a beeline to the stairs up to the library, and even though we had made up after this morning's spat, I felt inclined to keep away from her a bit longer. Catherine with a K slipped out of the rectory before I could ask her about James's story. I must admit I was relieved to once again have an excuse to avoid that conversation. I was more interested in the symbol Margaret had shown me, which I feared indicated something far more sinister than I or the superior were prepared for. Margaret seemed wholly unperturbed throughout her meal. How? I could not understand it. Just thinking about that twisted shape made me sweat. Is it like... Does it have like some innocuous meaning?
I don't know.
Is it something just like... I'm going to have to look that up when we're done with this to see if I can find what that might be. It had been so close to my cell. How had I never felt it? Had it woven some dark spell on me and I just hadn't noticed? Was it responsible for who I was? The mistakes that I continued to make? The concessions I made without verbal complaint to fit in with these women? The lack of a fight I had put up to the superior as she broke the seal on my cell? Was that thing responsible? These thoughts ran in my head until I too felt as if I had been spinning and sprinting in circles for too long. I did my best to shut them out and decided to instead wander down to the cellars, somewhat hopeful that it would keep me out of sight for the afternoon. After all, the cool air of the cellars would perhaps clear my head.
Hedwig, would you be so kind as to settle an argument between myself and Marta?
Oh yeah, of course, as long as you keep playing whatever this track is. I had chosen poorly. Argument?
Try this.
Is it supposed to smell like that?
Not you too. It does smell absolutely rank, Adela.
Adela was holding a stinking ladle over an opened cask, waving it between our faces with a great deal of indignation.
As I told you yesterday, Sister Marta, it smells like this temporarily. It gives the wine its flavor, and you can already taste it in this barrel. Go on.
Must I?
Better you than I. I'm afraid I might keel over if I inhale much more of this miasma.
With trepidation, I took the ladle from Adela's hand and held it up to my lips. The half-finished wine smelled truly foul, enough to make me cough. However, Adela was glaring at me with such determination that I was ever so slightly more afraid of her than the liquid. Closing my eyes, I braved the taste. It was actually not that bad. It was nowhere near as disgusting as the smell. However, it was clearly not meant for drinking yet, and whatever sweetness I could detect upon my tongue was soon covered up by a watery and weak fruit flavor, which was all too soon replaced by the overpowering stench of the ladle and barrel. It's coming together.
Unbelievable. See, even half fermented, the power sherry holds is undeniable.
How long will it take to, come into its own?
It takes several years to properly ferment. This batch is quite young. It only started when I first arrived. I have been dragging Sister Marta into the future. Thank God this isn't the only wine I have to work with. You have help. Surely you are not rotating all the casks throughout the Solera yourself.
Solera?
Is that I bet that's some sort of winemaking thing, but I don't know what.
A Spanish method of producing wine, especially sherry and Madeira. Madeira? Whereby small amounts of younger wine stored in an upper tier of casks are systematically blended with the more mature wine in the casks below.
Okay.
Interesting. Well, there you have it.
Of course not.
Oh, thank you,
Lamau.
Hedwig. What's the Solera?
All of these barrels, they have to move. You bottle some of the oldest wine from the bottom cask, and then refill with some of the youngest, then rotate that back to the top. It keeps the quality consistent, and it means that some of the oldest batch is in every bottle.
She took a moment to spoon the ladle into the liquid and try to sip herself. She smacked her lips and looked thoughtful. That sounds, arduous.
Too right. Helps to have some unruly younger sisters around to threaten with manual labor. I am always happy to help with winemaking. Believe me, I know you are.
So, does Darcy grow grapes as well?
Oh no, I use some fruits from the garden to flavor the other wines, but the grapes are from the village. The slope of the Tor is good for vineyards, but it gets too cold up here around the abbey proper. They only recently finished the last harvest and brought it to us, hence the Solera.
There certainly is an awful lot of work to do around here, it seems like.
Thank you for saying so. Some people don't appreciate just how complicated our work can be. Speaking of, I should really tend to my next task. Sister Hedwig, would you walk with me?
I bowed my head to Marta, who responded in kind even though she was preoccupied with sealing up the test cask. Adela walked me back through the rows of wine barrels and up the stairs, striding with purpose. I struggled to keep up as she crested the staircase into the halls around the cloister.
Sister Hedwig? How are you finding Lynbarrow Tor Abbey?
Well, I'm not used to it yet, obviously.
Yes, it is obvious. I hope you do not mind me saying.
Not at all.
I am also new here, and I can tell that you are suffering in the same ways I suffered.
Oh, was I? Was I suffering in the same way as Adela? I nearly blurted that out, but managed to restrain myself.
You are anxious, you are confused, you are eager to please everyone you meet. I was the same way for a while, but you must not be afraid to stand your ground when you feel you must.
I don't know what you mean.
You are doing it right now, Sister Hedwig. You know exactly what I mean because I am describing you as you are acting for me as we speak.
What is this about, Adela? Have I offended you?
Only my sense of justice. I want what is best for you, Sister Hedwig. I want to see you thrive. Do not retreat into your shell like Sister Flora does. She has an excuse. She is not yet 20. But you are nearing 30, are you not? Tell me, Sister Hedwig, was the sherry really so bad?
It was quite disgusting.
Of course it was. Sister Marta is going to ruin all of it before it is due.
But surely couldn't be anything but foul midway through the aging process? I'm no expert, but I thought wine took time to...
It would taste strange no matter what, but the taste I had after you, it was all wrong. I have worked on many wines and learned how to taste how wine is going to taste. And that sherry, it is not coming together as you described.
It was more of a guess.
It was a lie, a polite one, but untrue all the same.
I'm sorry, but shouldn't you be telling Marta and not me?
Oh, I will be marching back to Marta in just a moment, believe me, Sister Hedwig. But I want to help you as well. Never be afraid to speak your mind. The others will respect that much more than endless acquiescence.
I find that hard to believe.
See, you are already catching on.
No, I'm not practicing. I don't understand. I don't want to fight everyone.
Who said anything about fighting? I am not saying you should be contrary. I am saying you should not pretend to be someone you are not. Be Hedwig.
You are not the first person to tell me this today, believe it or not.
All the more reason to take me seriously. Please. I have been in your position before. I have felt lost and overlooked. But I became much happier when I stopped trying to please everyone.
I had no way to explain to Adela that beyond being thrust into an entirely new world of social interaction, I was also trying my best to ingratiate myself to everyone for a reason. Butting heads with Sister Angela was more than enough conflict for me, and given that I was here to unmask a murderer, I felt that drawing too much attention to myself was unwise. Being the newcomer had surely made me visible enough without tempting fate. But there was more to it than that. Quite simply, I had no idea of who Hedwig was.
Anyway, I have other business to attend to, and then I will be giving Sister Marta a piece of my mind. And then by supper we will be friends again. This is how things work. You must be strong.
I will try.
See that you do. I am on your side, Sister Hedwig.
Adela gave me a surprisingly firm pat on the shoulder and left. I stood in the corner we had been conversing in for a short while. I'd found Adela's penchant for romantic language somewhat charming up until now, but I did not appreciate these treacly platitudes. I was bouncing between embarrassment and fury. I needed a moment to myself. It was not yet even close to supper time. The days here, it seemed, would be excruciatingly long until I settled into a routine. As I calmed down, I thought about where I should go next. I'd already bothered Eustace enough for one day. I didn't want Darcy to get sick of me, and I had just left the cellars. Moreover, I hadn't a clue where anyone else would be at this time of day. Margaret, Catherine with a K, Moira, anyone, really. I yearned for the comfort of my cell. At least there my tasks had been clear as crystal. Around this time I'd usually be settling in to copy down some Bible pages after reflecting on some scripture. It was almost automatic. Perhaps I'd while away the evening in illuminating a page in gold leaf. With the start, I remember the last page I transcribed before leaving the cell, the book I'd thrown out of the window. Surely it'd be weathered by the elements by now, but I felt a strong urge to go and reclaim the half-finished tome. If nothing else, it would be a comforting reminder of the last time I'd had a clear sense of purpose. And we'll have to get to that next time. Next time? Usually when I say next time, you say next time.
I forgot.
You can't believe...
It's been so long that I forgot.
Oh, no. Well, maybe it won't be next time then.
There will be a next time.
Okay, fine. There will be next time then. Bye.
Peace.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.